first of all, a lot of people want to peg our system in a hole, so they think they have dominance over it. The thing I think a lot of people don't kind of are shocked by is that I don't possess any credibility from any martial arts. I don't go back and say, oh, because I was this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, that makes me great. What I did is perform the ultimate warrior concept. I went to war. I physically went to war and fought. I physically and mentally had to survive real tragic events, real horrific concepts of human violence. Not the stuff that you see in the gym, or not the stuff that you see in a ring, the ultimate fight. It's not an ultimate fight. It's an ultimate sport, if you want to call it brutality. I mean, you can go out there and punch each other in the face, big deal. Punching in the face used to be a game to me. I can recount one time when I was 21 and I just got out of the military. I came back and I was so happy to be involved, and I had two huge guys come up to me because I only weighed 116 because of Starvation Valley, which is another story. But the value is they came up and tried to start a fight with me, and I was laughing and just telling the people, look, I just don't want to play any games. The guy literally opens the door to the side of my car, starts wailing at me, and I'm laughing and say, look, kid, I don't want to play any games. And I looked like a child myself, because I was in those days, until he hit me. And when he hit me, within the next few seconds, the guy was on the ground, brutally destroyed. I mean, he lost an eye, his face was totally ripped apart, and I wasn't aware of what I did, except for, when I say I wasn't aware of what I did, I mean I was aware of the brutality I was putting on him, but I had forgotten, because I was right out, not more than 3 or 4 months out of Vietnam, I had forgotten I wasn't back in the war when he hit me in the temple. But the brutality a man can do. And then I look at these guys fight the ultimate fight, and in 30 seconds they're still fighting. To me, I've had a fight last no longer than 2 seconds. 1, 2. And by then, the man is brutally destroyed. Ugly. It's ugly. I mean, you got to live with it. And so you people out there that think it's just good to go out and be able to punch some guy in the face and maybe poke an eye out or break a guy's neck. Look, I have to live with that the rest of my life. And I'm telling you, there's a way to train people. So when first of all, we talk about, like you said, where does it come from as a martial arts? Well, when I was in Vietnam, I was attached to the Korean ROK division. I saw their system, fine system, only it wasn't as good as the good American knowledgeable brutality of aggression. And I also saw that when people were trained in the martial arts, they were trained to do defensive movement sets, and that was the first time I was aware of how it started to play in combat. These things called defensive movement sets, which people won't even recognize now. And I try to help them out there, the martial arts world. That's what the tapes are for. Hey guys, get rid of this. You're making large openings and counters in your system. Well, that's the real deal over there in Vietnam. And they weren't doing form sets, and they weren't doing things to play games in an arena. They were actually fighting. And I saw that. And then I had the opportunity to fight Chinese. And because anybody that knows, the Chinese were involved in that. And if you don't, I'm telling you now, the Chinese were involved in that. When we had overrun situations or ambushes that required certain situations to use hand-to-hand. And those guys were big. They weren't small. They're 6 foot tall. So I saw their system. I saw their kung fus. And that's a whole nother area. Respected it. Understood that any blow could kill you if you let them do it. But see, that's the idea. I started looking at things, recognizing, yet I was still only 19 years old. And I recognized there was a value to organized fighting skills. But I also recognized there was a disservice to the individuals that learned these defensive structures. And so I went out as I got done with the military, and I went on out when I was young, and I started going to martial arts. I mean, I'm only 19 years old. I did just what my ad says. I went out to research the value of what I found to be true in true combat. I took those real principles and then went out and took them to other people who, quote, are supposed to be expert hand-to-hand fighters. Now, when you say fighting to me, you're talking about the ability to take one's life, not to bruise you, not to knock you down or to win points. So I started going to people. And I traveled all over. going to every known major martial arts and experts in those fields. Went there, respectfully went into their schools, respectfully watched what they did. Some of them I'd stay a day, some I'd stay a week, some I'd stay 3 months, some I'd stay several years, depending on whether or not I could use them to do research. And people say, well, what do you mean use them? They're like people we talk to. How do you use them? Well, we do like blind research. And what it is when you go up to an individual, let's say you go to Hang Rangdu. So you go into a Hang Rangdu school and you say, look, I want to sign up. If you told that instructor straight out that you were there doing research and you want to see that their system is where it falls apart and where it comes back, and you're a real I did that 2 times. Walked into 2 very powerful people. I don't like mentioning names. I don't like mentioning names for this reason. I respect everybody. But if I start mentioning names, then I have to say the truth, and then I have to point out the inadequacies of those people. And you know what? I respect them. And if you're not sharp enough, if you're not an expert, you go in there and I don't want to hurt your feelings. It's working for you, fine. Because I'm there doing research. I'm not there to belittle anybody. I have respect. The same thing I respect from anybody. And you know, because you've been in the military, when military men come to me, I know they're there to challenge me. They're there to find out how much I know. I respect them. They have to have, I have to be able to be tested. And I'll put myself out to do that. So, as far as martial arts goes, I have got so much information on that because those were the experts at that time. But after 20 years of going through that, over and over again, testing it, I created this knowledge base of pure science. And what it was this. I put everybody on a scale from 1 to 100. 100 being absolute perfection of all movements that are incorporated in their system. And no matter who I've gone to, and I have gone to many lengths to try to find the best fighters in the world. And you know what? There's some real good guys out there. Guys that are dead now, the old Chinese, old Japanese, and Koreans, and Filipinos. There's a lot of people I've met in the past that I thought were great fighters. But unfortunately, their systems, or the way that they taught, was reduced because they taught maybe 10% of actual scientific moves, and the rest was their personality, their culture, their art. And I respected that. But, like I was talking to one group, we were just talking to a law enforcement group, and they were talking about the same thing you asked. And I said, well, here's the scale. And I went 10, 20, and 35% was the highest I've ever saw any martial arts and ever developed or talked to anybody that had gotten this system. And they say, well, what system is it? Well, it isn't a system, and it's basically the Buddhist system, which all Asians come from. I'm not going to, it's just a total development of it. And people would throw out names like, if you throw a name out like Kempo, well, the guy's idea over here, Kempo, this is the thing about art. Over here, the idea of Kempo is totally different than the other side of the country. Or if I say Taekwondo, there are different factors. We're not interested in that because that gets people killed. We're not interested in moving our hands in certain ways that can't hold modern weaponry. So when we talk about martial arts, that's why martial artists come to us. Because we're open enough to say, look, we're not saying you can't do that. If you want to do a ridge hand, understand 2 things. That when you do a ridge hand that comes out like this, you're unlocking the tendon support systems of the elbows and shoulders that lock it in to the torso to create kinetic force. And for a modern day warrior and for a modern day man to do something as silly as that, it is nothing more than an art or a dance or a performance that may look good, but it will injure your body if done wrong and made contact. So why should we do something like that? That's science. So science says that. So what I say to you guys, if you practice out there and you have a martial art, you're going to see something that looks like your art in our system. And you better hope you find it, because if you do, you know your system's part of that true base science, and you're not wasting 20 years.